Our next speaker will present how we build complete news platforms with WordPress and Elementor. Please welcome Simia Murky.
Hey, thank you for the introduction. Welcome to my talk. It's about how we build news platforms with WordPress and Elementor. But we don't only build news websites. Maybe you have noticed that in my description of the talk. We build news platforms that can automate to like any platform, to maybe print, social media, or basically anywhere. And the reason why we do this is that we think content creators should care about content and not copy pasting. And to explain that a bit further, I made an example. Let me introduce you to Max. This is Max. He's a very deep into the subject coffee blogger. So he talks about all things coffee, like the newest brew, the newest coffee machine, you name it. By the way, I chose coffee as a subject because that's a subject that's very near to my heart. And Max, he also loves coffee, just like me. And he is also a blogger. He not only has a blog on a website, he also posts his content on social media, and also once a month, he shares his content in a news magazine. That's basically a great idea to share everywhere or almost everywhere. The idea is great, but in real life, Max has to do a lot of copy pasting, which is not fun, and it's really not what Max wanted to do in the beginning. So how do we solve that? We can actually solve that for Max with WordPress and Elementor. We can use WordPress not only as a web CMS, but as a content management system as such. And in this talk, I will show you how to do that, how to automate, to print, to obviously your website, to social media, and then we can even automate to more channels like email newsletters or even an app. And that's what I'm going to show you in your talk. In my talk, obviously. And so that leaves Max with a lot more time and a lot more resources to do what he loves. And that's actually my mission. And that's why I love this concept. And this concept is what we call content first. It's basically a simple name, content first. We care about content before everything else. That sounds nice, right? And I get to do this every day. And I get to do this not only every day, but I get to do it with my family, which is very, very cool. You can see them here on this picture. That's my family and my sister. She's actually an Elementor leader as well. So we are an Elementor family. That's Joshi. He's also an Elementor leader here in Switzerland. Those are my parents. And this, very important, is our dog, Lily. And what we do is basically build those news platforms or content platforms for our clients. And not only that, I am also on the side of a content creator some days. We have this blog called the Publishing Blog. It's a German blog about publishing. We have about 50 to 60,000 readers a month. And yeah, basically there we share everything that we are interested about. So I am not only the person who builds those content platforms, but I also come from the side of a content creator. And that leaves me actually with a question for all of you. What is a subject you know and love so much that you could be a content creator for? So please go ahead and type an emoji in the chat. I'm going to open the chat here so I can see this, what you are sharing with me. I see dogs, I see tea. I don't know, is there a tea emoji? Cats, wow. Many pet lovers here. Music, I could join with that as well. Motorcycles, houses. Very cool. Thanks for sharing. So let's move on. Why does content first actually matter? That's like one question that we need to take on in the first step. Why do we do this? And there's one thing that's very important. We often think that we are creating a blog, creating a video, or creating a newspaper. But what we are actually creating is content. People don't ever consume blogs or magazines as such. Like when you read a magazine, you read it because of what's in there. Or when you watch a video, you don't watch the video just for the sake of the video, but you watch the video because you're interested in the content. So that's why we think content first is important, because clients also don't think that way. They don't think that they're consuming like a channel, they're more consuming content. So that's the first part. And there's also a second part of that. Content first really does not leave you with a bonding to a channel, which is very important. Like maybe you have just adjusted your communication to TikTok. And then as soon as you posted your first video, there's a new social media platform. I'm not sure if you have experienced that. If you do, post it in the chat. I am very excited to hear your stories. Maybe you have experienced that. And you can solve this problem with content first strategy. So you should really be adaptable to any evolving platform, and it should not be dependent on a channel. It's actually something we see with many news sites or newspapers. For example, in Switzerland, we have many newspapers, and they are printing and printing and printing, and they cannot get rid of this, and they cannot evolve to new channels. It's a big struggle because their whole identity is built on writing a newspaper, while actually they should care more about the content than the channel. So that's all about content first. And the question maybe is, what do you do with this subject at an Elementor meetup? The good way, or the good news, is that you can build this. You can build a content first platform with WordPress and with Elementor. And that's actually the good news that I have for you. It's what we do in real life since like more than 2 years now. We have used Elementor for even longer, and we started integrating the WordPress database with Elementor. Maybe you know something about the WordPress database. The WordPress database is based on MySQL. MySQL is actually a technology that's very broadly used. Many people use MySQL for their data. And when you use Gutenberg, the standard editor in WordPress, the posts are stored in clean HTML. And that's actually everything we need for content first, because HTML is all over the web and is transformable to print. So we need a database. And then we use WordPress and, of course, Elementor to build the website. So with PHP and CSS, we build the website. That means we compile all of this content to a website. That's how WordPress works, basically. And for a content-first strategy, when you are building a WordPress website, it's very important that you care about a clean database. And what I am telling you now will probably be a bit of a shocker. It's to not use Elementor. No, I'm joking. It's to not use Elementor in your blog posts. So I'm going to show you what I mean in just a second. Don't edit your blog posts with Elementor, but edit them with Gutenberg. That's what I was going to say. So here you see the Gutenberg interface. That's probably something you know when you're working with WordPress. That's how it looks when you are adding a post. That's basically a post in our blog. It's a real life example. And what I am telling you tonight, or whatever your time is today, is to never click this button in posts. And that's basically everything you need to do to go from your website to a content first platform. What you want to do instead is use the full power of Elementor and build single post templates. So if you are familiar with the template structure of Elementor, there's a single post template, which will take care of every post. That's why it's called single post. So you have those widgets that care about the database. There's the post title widget, for example. If you drag it in, it will be the title that you added in Gutenberg. The same for the post content widget, which will be the content that you add in Gutenberg. So here, just a quick overview how we will build a website that will be content first conform. Another plus point of that strategy will be that you can actually extend that database by using custom fields, custom post types, and custom taxonomies. If you're not familiar with that, it's basically very easy. It's just a way of adding more fields to your WordPress. So standard, we have posts and pages in WordPress. And if you use custom post types, you can add any post type you want. So maybe you would have a podcast, or you would have a team member directory or something like that. So you can just add directories of post types. You can also add taxonomies, which is the equivalent for categories in WordPress, and you can add custom fields. And these custom fields can also be integrated with Elementor. And we will integrate them in the single post template. And that's what I love about Elementor. It's that it really, really well integrates with the database of WordPress without actually having to touch the database or manipulate anything with Elementor. When we create custom fields and custom post types and things like that, we use the plugin CPT UI and ACF. We found that they very smoothly integrate with the database, but it's not like that's the only plugins you could use. That's just our advice, because they really smoothly integrate with the MySQL database. Well, let me show you some examples where I show you what we built with that strategy. The first one is a magazine we built for a city. It's a city called Goldach, and it's a city in Switzerland, and they have this newspaper. They have had it for years now. Probably I was not even born when they started printing that newspaper, and it's all about this city. So whatever happens in Goldach, in the city, they will share it in the newspaper. Maybe there's something people need to know about the school. Maybe there is something that they are building a new street, or whatever, you name it. And this newspaper is basically for everyone living there, so they would get the news. And the problem is, or the good thing is, that the internet came up, and this city had to adapt to this new channel. And adapting to new channels should sound familiar to you by now. It's basically what they needed, a Colin First project. So we built a WordPress website for them, and now all the people writing for this magazine will add their posts in WordPress. And then all we do is simply automate those posts and the content in this website to InDesign. That's a very often used tool for print designing. So what we do is not copy pasting. What we do is use the time we have for content creation and actually just save time in the latter process. Also, we did this on a news platform called Pro, the German news platform, and they had the wish for an app. They wanted their content in an app as well. And we did this with WordPress, Elementor, and that's how it looks. There's also a third example I wanted to show you. You could use custom fields for any additional content. That's a very good example for this. We have case studies on a website, on a blog, from an agency website. So they are showing off what they are doing. And in the end, there will be a testimonial block. This testimonial block, we fill it with ACF. We have a text field, we have an image field, and we also have a file download button for a PDF. And what we want to do, or what we could do, is automate that to social media, because testimonials are something you could really easily share on social media. And it's something you can do with WordPress and Elementor. So enough of that. You can go from the database to literally anywhere as long as you clean your database. And that's how this looks. At the moment, we are able to automate from WordPress to web, obviously, and then to social media, to InDesign, the print design software, to PDFs, directly printable PDFs without touching anything. I will show you later. We can export to a newsletter. We can export to two types of apps, progressive web apps and hybrid apps. We can also automatically go to audio versions of our content. And that may sound like a lie to you, but it's actually very true. I can show you some examples how you can do it as well, and it's even low cost. So for social media, we like to use automation services like Zapier. This works with LinkedIn and Facebook, and also with Pinterest and Twitter. It does not work at the moment with Instagram. But what you can do is basically set up Zapier and connect it to your WordPress. And then every time a new blog post will come up on your website, it will be shared on social media. That's how this looks in our use case. You can even use it with ACF, so with custom fields. In our blog, in the Gutenberg editor directly, we have hashtags. Those are the hashtags. And this hashtag field will be filled up by our people, by our authors, by the people who really know the content and probably also know what hashtags are used by the users of that software. So this custom field will be automated with Zapier, and it will land in this example LinkedIn post. It could also be Facebook, Twitter, you name it, but not Instagram. That's one down point of that. And then you can also use other plugins. Zapier is not a plugin, it's more of an automation service, but you can use plugins. There's, for example, Blog2Social or also WP2Buffer, which allow you to automate your posts. Blog2Social has an ability to even add custom texts to your social media posts, or it also has a feature to allow you to post to best times. Let's say you would always want to post on Instagram at 4 p.m. You could set that up in Blog2Social and it will automatically share the post then, no matter when the blog post in WordPress was shared. So then off to InDesign. That's the print design software many people use, and you can automate the content to InDesign. There are actually several solutions to do that. One of them is a free solution. It's called Press2ID. It's a JSON-based solution. It sounds like coding, but it's really not. There's no code in there. It's a script you can download for InDesign, and it's free. But there's also another connection. There's the connection of InDesign to the database. There are multiple tools that can do that for you. For example, Easy Catalog, but also tools like Easy Import. And what they do is actually connect to the MySQL database. Maybe you can remember in the beginning of this talk, I told you that WordPress uses a MySQL database. And there are actually very many plugins that allow you to connect any database, for example, MySQL databases, to InDesign. And any tool that can do that for you can also automate content from WordPress to InDesign. I also put a screenshot here so you can see this. If you want to compare those two ways, Press2ID is free. That's a very big plus for them. But there's one downside. It's that you cannot synchronize content. So if you are going for a way of really integrating with the database, where you can change the text in InDesign and it will change in WordPress, then you should use the Easy Catalog feature. But if you are just going for a one-time export of WordPress, Press2ID will work perfectly fine for you. Then there's another version you can export to print layouts. There's PrintCSS. Maybe you've heard about this. It's also called Paged Media Module, and it's in CSS3. And with that, you can actually automate from WordPress directly to a PDF. And because I wanted you to believe that, I wanted to show you a video where this is done in real time. So we have this website with some demo content. I'm sorry it's in German, but I am sure this will not disturb you. And in the backend of WordPress, we can choose our posts and say we want to render them with a PrintCSS theme. It's basically just like the WordPress themes you know. And then we're done, and we have a printable PDF. Actually, with a table of contents, with a title page, with different layouts for different posts. And this is real time. And that's something we are working at the moment. And it's something that's actually very easy if you know CSS. If you download the plugin, on my slides later, I wanted to say you can also download the plugin here via this link. PrintCSS, by the way, is something very, very interesting. If you know CSS already, I would really, really encourage you to look into this. then let's move on. There's also an ability to use a weekly newsletter with WordPress. We do this in our publishing blog as well. So we basically do nothing, and each week a newsletter goes out to our subscribers, which will show all the new blog posts that were coming up in the latest week. And you can do that with MailChimp, and MailChimp will integrate your WordPress RSS feed. WordPress automatically creates a WordPress RSS feed for you, and you only basically have to copy the link and put it in. Then you set up your newsletter template once, and then you don't touch it anymore. It will go out automatically. So talking about saving time, this does the trick. There's also another way of sharing your content, and it's via an app. I'm not sure if you're familiar with progressive web apps. They are basically websites that you can save on your phone. So you have offline functionalities, and you can work with OS services like fingerprint, face recognition, NFC, Bluetooth, anything basically. The only down point is that you cannot use push notifications yet on iPadOS or iOS. But yeah, well, I think it's a point that is just a question of time. And you can add progressive web app functionalities to your WordPress sites with a free WordPress plugin. You can find it in the repository. It's called Progressive WordPress by Nico Martin. And that actually works with Elementor perfectly fine. So you would have one version of an app, but there's also the other version. Because progressive web apps, they will not be saved in app stores. You can only download them on the website. If you want an app, like a real app in the store, you can also do it with WordPress. We used WP Mobile app before, and it's a plugin you can install on your website, and you can basically generate an app. And then you would add those app files to the Apple and the Google Play Store. And then you could just basically create an app from your website. You can also add some additional sites, or you can use like app-like features. You can say what you want to have offline, and you can use it with Elementor templates. That will be very interesting for all of you, I think. You can use WP Mobile app perfectly fine with Elementor. We have not had any issues except for the animations, but I mean, animations in an app are more a showstopper than anything else. An alternative to that for also a real app is AppPresser. However, you cannot use Elementor with that, but I wanted to give you a second option for that. And then there's audio. You can use AI-powered text-to-speech generation to generate from Gutenberg to a podcast. So if you don't want to record a podcast, you can always just write your text and then generate a podcast. But there are also podcast plugins. You can use Seriously Simple Podcasting, and that's a plugin you can use to distribute your podcast. That means WordPress would be like a host for your plugins. And well, that were some channels. And how it is, as always, just when you think you're finished, there's a new channel evolving. So let me show you. Maybe you own a smartphone, and maybe you have used voice. And you maybe ask yourself, what are the best WordPress plugins for 2021? And what the
Here's
Google...
a summary from Freshy Sites. The 10 best WordPress plugins for 2021. WooCommerce, all-in-one SEO, advanced custom fields.
Yeah, what it did is basically give me a list of the best WordPress plugins for 2021. The only mistake it did is not listing Elementor, but that's up to the content manager there. They perfectly fine listed all those things. And to adapt to this voice thing is basically the key is to have a clean database. And that's what Content First does to you. So if you remember one thing, I really want you to remember that you should have a content first strategy if you want to stay adaptable for long term. So the key points, what you should remember is content is king and not the channel. Remember, you are not creating a blog, but you are creating valuable content for your readers or viewers or listeners or anything. And to stay adaptable, it's very important to keep your database clean. So I really want to encourage you to use the power in your hands and save time for the things that really matter. And that's not just something I'm saying, it's something I feel like is very empowering for every one of us. It really empowers a one-person content creator to go out there and save resources at the same time. So if you want to download those slides, you can do that here. Here's the QR code, or you could also type this link in your browser, and that will be it. So if you have any questions, let me get there.
Yeah, I can. Hey, great job, Simia. Let me. I'll ask you a couple questions. We're running short on time. The most upvoted question was: do you write differently for the web, social media versus elsewhere?
Well, I think it depends on the content creator you have. If the content creator is very familiar with social media, I think it is very smart to, for example, add hashtags as I showed. So if that is an ability, then do that. But if you feel like it will not be used, don't implement it. Only implement features that you think will be used.
Okay. The next question is, what's the biggest benefit of selling the client on a content-first approach?
It's basically not about selling. It's basically more about thinking. I would love my client to stay adaptable for long term, so I can hold my client for a long time because I love my clients. And the only way to adapt to those channels is to basically think content first. So that's, yeah, it's not like a thing of selling, it's a thing of thinking, basically.
The final question, your opinion about paid copywriting. Is it dangerous to have hyper-production content, or is it better to lower number of published articles, but with high content quality? How to balance between the two options? Now, that was a lot of questions. You can pick whatever you want to answer from this.
It's a good question, actually. I feel like when you are going for a content marketing strategy, like we do, for example, our publishing blog, it's like a marketing tool for us. I think it's vital that we write them on our own, because sometimes it happens that clients will come and talk to me about a blog post I wrote. And if I actually did not write that blog post, it will be very embarrassing. So basically, I would say rather improve your process and improve what you can cut, but care about the content yourself. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right. So if folks want to reach out to you, will you be in the networking rooms, or how can they get in contact?
Yeah, sure, they can. Also, in the slides, in the PDF I shared, and I can also share it again here, I am on almost every social media network there is out there. And you can find me there or shoot me an email. You can find my email right here. And yeah, I think we'll get in touch if you like.
All right, great. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for joining.